Hello, everyone. This is the Insider series. And our guest today, I'm really grateful that she's come on. It's Grace Meadows. And this is a space where we strip away the music industry smoke and mirrors and bring you face to face with people that can actually help. So I'm Josh Robinson, and today we're going to have a deep dive into someone who's had a lifetime helping thousands of musicians across the UK. Grace Meadows is head of corporation partnerships, trust and events that help musicians, and also leads Music Minds Matters, the UK's first 24/7 mental health support line in the music community. So for you guys, this is all about you, and this session is for you and progressing yourself. So I'm going to start it. I'm very much want you guys to take over and lead it. So Grace, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it. For people that might not understand your role or exactly what Help Musicians or Music Minds Matter does, could you give us a bit of a rundown, please?
Yes, and thanks ever so much for inviting me to be part of the session this evening. So Help Musicians, for those of you who don't know, does what it says on the tin. It helps musicians in every sense of that word help, in terms of starting out to ending your career in music or bringing your career to a close, and then everything in between. So with that comes health and welfare support, comes career advice support, creative advice support, awards and scholarships that you can apply for. And it's not genre specific. What we're really keen to do is support musicians working across the breadth of music in all the amazing creative ways that they can. So whether it's the electronic award that we have, to the jazz award, to the postgraduate awards actually that I've just been adjudicating last week. It's a real breadth that we offer in terms of supporting musicians. And we've been around for over 100 years doing that. And we've got a really strong ethos around fostering our creative community of music practitioners, because as you all know, life as a working musician is tough. And our census report that we published in 2023 shows that. It shows that, there's lots of stresses on the lives of musicians, whether it's financial precarity, the freelancing, the always on, always need to perform, the constant pressure, the sense of always wanting to produce excellent creative work, network, the list is as long as your arm and then some in terms of what we know those pressures to be. So that's why we're here, to help alleviate those stresses and also to help you navigate them at any stage in your career. And what we found, it was about 2016, we were finding that there was a spike in the number of people coming to us for mental health support. So we started an offshoot with a 24/7 helpline, as Josh was saying, and that's really snowballed from there. Partly because of the pandemic, and we found that we were growing a service. So that is now incorporated at the helpline, what we call self-care sessions. These are online support services that we run, looking at different aspects of staying well, really, when working in music, and then counselling. That's the other big addition that we made to that service. But what we realised was that actually working under the umbrella of Help Musicians meant that we were constrained in who we could support across music. We were only able to support Help Musicians, which is why we created Music Minds Matter. And that has a slightly different constitution. It means that we can support anybody working in music, because actually, whilst the mental health of musicians is absolutely critical, what musicians rely on heavily is the team around them. So actually, if your manager's off, if your agent's off, if your crew is off, if your roadies are off, if your production team is off, you're not going to be able to do as good a performance on stage. You need that solidity around you and your team. You need to know everyone's on the same page with you. But equally, if people aren't, you need to know how to support them. So with Music Minds Matter, we have two strands of the work. We have those services that we provide that I just described. That's the kind of in the moment, here and now support that we offer. But then as a separate charity for about 2.5 years now, we also are very much looking at prevention. So rather than people getting into crisis, we will always provide that sort of in the moment support. But actually, what's also really important to us is how we influence and change for the better people's behavior, thinking, actions, thoughts around mental health in music. So making sure that people can navigate the mental health support that's available to them, so they're getting the right support at the right time, but also destigmatizing the way we're talking about mental health in music, but also helping people put practices in place that prevent people getting into crisis in the first place. So if you're a venue manager what are you doing for your staff, given that you know that late nights are a big deal for you, and that actually currently under the current circumstances, there's enormous amount of pressure for those venues to succeed and stay afloat. So how do we support that and also try and alleviate some of the pressures around that? We can only do that by talking about mental health and the importance of prioritizing it and providing resources and tools. So there's a heavy emphasis on education that we provide within our preventative work. And we very much do that in collaboration with our partners. So whether that's through corporate partnerships that help us fund the services that we have and help us grow and scale those, right through to our industry partners that we have through our Allies program. These are our trade and membership organizations that we work with, so that we can really reach into the industry to let everyone know that we're here to support as many people as possible. Because I think because of that legacy of working with help musicians, there's a slight myth that we only support musicians at Music Minds Matter, and it's quite the opposite. We support everyone working in music. So there's quite a lot to take in there. I paused for breath so people can just take that in.
Grace, it is amazing that this support is out there for people in the music industry. When we started LMS UK 9 years ago, I said, I'm only doing it if we have a wellbeing section. A lot of people in this call might be aware of Helen, who's our head of wellbeing here at LMS UK. And we are so proud to have her look after our wellbeing, look after our support. I know she signposts you guys a lot in the work that she does. And you're absolutely spot on. It's not just our artists, but it's the people around supporting, because they help our artists progress through. So my first question with all of that, and what a brilliant summary it was, is there anything you wish more musicians ask you as an organization?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. I think one of the questions, I think back to when I trained as a classical musician, a classical bassoonist, and I think I wished I just said what help's available. I think that simple question, what help is available to me for the support that I might need now and the support that I might need in the future, whether that's help musicians or Music Minds Matter. I think not enough people know that they can ask for support. So I think giving the permission to have the conversation, what support do I need? Because I think
I really like the point where you've talked about that stigma of talking about mental health. And that's a big part of the discussion today. And actually, people coming out, making that first step and talking to someone is just so important, isn't it?
yeah, and you don't necessarily need to feel that you might be having a wobble or not in a great place or feeling as though you're really sort of spiraling. It can be just that sort of prevention mindset. I want to really do well in my career. What do I need to know about myself and about the support that's available that that can keep me on track, really? So I think it's having both the sort of sense of permission and bravery to ask the question, but also the vulnerability to say, actually, I'm just right at the beginning here. I need to know what's possible in terms of support, should I ever need it or want it.
Absolutely. What a brilliant way to say. Now, navigating the industry a little bit, I see a lot where musicians might get exploited, even in 2025 with pay to plays or some legal deals they're signing, or people messaging them asking to get more money out of people. What's one red flag musicians should really watch out for, whether it's contracts or gigs or just the industry in general?
I think, I think there's plenty of red flags, but I think that sense of urgency that means that you've got to respond in the moment and you've not got a chance to digest. If somebody really wants you on their stage or wants to put you on their stage, then you should have the time to be able to say, hang on, I just need to make sure I'm happy with the arrangement we've got here. And whether that's you being able to pick up the phone to a mentor and say, look, I've been offered this gig or this contract. Can I just run through it with you? Or whether it's actually, I need to go and seek more formal support with that. And then I think that's a really important thing to be able to do, is holding the boundary. I think I was on a call with somebody last week and they talked about this. They said, actually, at the beginning of starting out their career, they would have said yes to anything in the hope they just might get noticed. And they said that, whilst they had some good experiences, they also know that they had some really bad experiences by taking that approach. Whereas actually, by them saying, no, I'm sorry, that's not a good enough contract, or no, I'm not agreeing to those terms, and being able to put the boundary back, they felt they were keeping themselves safer, and they were. But also they were trying to say back to the industry, no, you cannot try and pass a contract over like that. It's not acceptable, whether it's the rate of pay or, the demands that are in the contract. So I think that is being able to just take a deep breath. It's a bit like if somebody says to you a comment that you're thinking, I don't know quite how to respond to that. And, the advice is to take a couple of deep breaths before responding. It's a bit like that with a contract. It's a bit like, I have time to say, thanks very much for sharing this contract with me or this proposal. I'm going to need a day to come back to you on that. And really sort of say, okay, and go through it with a fine tooth comb. And if you don't feel able to do that, it's knowing who's in your circle of trust or friendship that you can speak to about it. But I think things like rate of pay, each musician might have a separate bar on that, but also the musicians union also has its rates of pay to refer to. But it's things like, is there a hot meal included? What's the pack down time? Just the logistics of it. What does that look like around the offer? And is there going to be space for you to do what you need to be able to do to make that gig a success for you or that concert a success for you? So I think the really important thing is knowing who you can speak to if you're concerned about putting your name on a contract.
One amazing bit of advice, just taking a breath, going to speak to someone you trust, because you're absolutely right. There are good people in the industry. And if you say, look, I just need a couple of days, I need to just check this over, I would say no to that. I'll do, of course, I'd always encourage them to do that. So I think that's brilliant advice. And it's important that even something silly like hot meals and stuff, it's so important to bring up because exposure doesn't pay the bills, does it? The logistics, the petrol, the food, this all comes into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we're very good because of that sense of always being on, knowing that there's always somebody else wanting to be on stage. We sort of end up saying yes to things, and then we find ourselves compromised in the moment. And we're not only compromised creatively, musically, but also emotionally and financially. So actually being able to protect yourself by just saying, I need some time to look at this, and then being able to push back. Contracts and negotiation. So if somebody's putting terms in front of you, you can say, okay, I'd love to do this, but there are a couple of things I need to, think with you about in terms of being able to make this happen.
Absolutely. That's absolutely brilliant advice. I've seen you, Grace, you're teaming up with people like Tonic as well, who we're teaming up with in the near future, which is really exciting. Looking across this call, there's some really brilliant artists on here, which I'm very glad have joined us. What's one thing you think every artist should do this week that could protect their music career?
Oh, brilliant question. In terms of mental health, I would say take half an hour this week if you can to do a little bit of self-reflection and think about what are the things that keep you well. Think about whether that's diet, exercise, sleep, nutrition, network of friends and family, everyday habits that you might have. Think about what keeps you well, and then think about how much you actually do that in daily practice. And then think about the things that happen, behaviors, actions, habits that maybe don't keep you as well, and think about how much you might be doing those, and just doing a bit of a self-assessment as to where you're at. And then you might find that actually you might need to dial up the sleep a little bit, or dial up the good diet habits a bit more. Or it might be that you need to, dial down X number of late nights a week and perhaps do more of more outside of music. I would say doing a little bit of that self-reflection, it will help you then as you move through your weeks and months to think, how am I doing this week? My levels look like this. Everyone will have their own different, if everything was on like a graph and it was 1 to 10, people's graphs will look different because, some people might say that they need 7 hours sleep a night. They need absolutely all their veggies and fruit a week, and need a really clean diet. They need X amount of exercise. It's going to look different for everybody. So, your chart will look, your levels will look different. And then if you sort of get to an end of a week and you're thinking, I'm not feeling right, you can do sort of a self-reading of, I'm not feeling great because 4 out of 7 nights this week, I've been out till 2:00 and I've been back at my desk at 8:00. So actually I'm really exhausted. So what do I need to do next week? Or where do I need to build in some more time, some more rest? So I would say absolutely take the time, do that self-investment. You've got to invest in yourself, and actually people notice when you do. And when they notice that, they're sort of more inclined to invest in you further.
Absolutely.
And then I'd also do another little sort of scan of where you're at and say, look, how am I doing financially? Do I need some career support? And then have a look at what we provide at Help Musicians, and talk to us. So don't be hesitant about picking up the phone. If you feel that any of the support that we provide could be useful, we've got people waiting to take your call and to have a conversation with you.
Incredible. You guys have been told, and I absolutely back it because it's so, so important. Grace, we've touched on the mental health side, we've touched on some of the legal side. I'm sure there's a lot of artists here that are going to want to touch on the funding side. So I'm going to ask you one more question, and I'm going to let the artists and the people in this group kind of take over. So, guys, if you have questions, put them in the chat box, or if you're brave enough to ask on camera, either way, go for it. This is your time to get what you want out of this call whilst we have Grace. So make most of that. But just before I pass over to the artists, talking about funding, Grace, what's the biggest mistake you see musicians making in 2025?
This is a great question. Actually, it came up at the Nighttime Economy Summit in Birmingham back in February. It's really not, when applying for funding, what's really important to funders is to see the purpose of what you're asking for money for. How is it going to help move your career forward? That feels really important to us because money is tight. Funders don't have infinite pots of cash. And what they want to do is help grow you as a musician, but also your network, the influence that you have as a musician. So, for example, we have a variety of awards. Some are long-term investment awards in terms of things like postgraduate award, but then others are smaller fast-track awards. So if you're going on tour and you just need a boost to your funding, then being able to be very clear about why you need that £500 to get that tour over the line, and we will support you. But if you say, well, I need £500 because, it's going to be a lovely project, that's not sort of music to the funders' ears. I think because things are so tight, people want clarity and purpose in what you're putting in your applications. And I've heard that from the PRS Foundation, I've heard that from the Arts Council, I've heard it from some other funders. So really being clear about what it is that you intend to use the funding for and what the outcomes are and what you think the impact is going to be for you and how it's going to move you on another stage, another rung up the ladder in terms of your musical ambitions. And I should have said, in answer also to your previous question, just it goes without saying, really, register with PPL and PRS if you haven't. It's I remember us talking about that at the Radio Wigwam event. It's an absolute must in terms of that income stream as well.
Jeff always said to me, that the manager on the panel, he said, Josh, we need to let artists know that this could be a retirement fund. I mean,
Yes.
that's the way he sees this long term, because it might not happen now. You might have a release out and it does okay, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. If that gets picked up by someone, and he's always, since I've known Jeff, he's really pushed that home across all the talks that he does, and it's something that definitely has stuck with me when speaking with artists.
Absolutely.
Right, I'm going to pass over, guys. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask Grace whilst we have her? Because we're very lucky to have her on. We've got a couple come through. So Marcus has said, what is the main thing funders look for when investing in an artist?
That's a good question. They want to see that you've got a vision for what it is that you're trying to do. So if you're putting on a concert or a festival or whatever it might be, what is it you're wanting to get out of that? Is that to grow your community, to grow your audience? It's having that clarity of purpose, because so many people want to have a career in music. It's really about trying to elevate those who have got clarity, but also, if you're saying that, look, I want to do this, but I'm not quite sure, but I know that if I was able to have some career advice, then this would help me do X, Y, and Z. And they might then steer you in a slightly different direction in terms of funding and support. So I think it's really about you having a strong vision of what you want and being able to articulate it authentically and genuinely.
Absolutely. What a brilliant answer that is. Max has asked, where's the best place to get funding? It always seems there's a long process and you have to fit certain criteria to even be considered.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Max, and it really depends on what it is that you're applying for funding for. So it's a bit about doing your research, but I think websites such as PRS Foundation and the Arts Council tend to be quite clear, as do I hope we are. So it's about sort of matching your efforts with what's available, and I think that and I think it's really about picking up the phone. Often lots of funders have that opportunity to have a chat with them before you put the application in, so that you're not spending time filling out forms and then feeling as though, you've not been able to get the funding. So, or not being able to get the funding. So I'd say really have a think about what project that you want support with and what it is you want support with. We as funders, are always trying to be better at what we're describing in terms of what support we can provide and what it is that we will support. But if you're not sure, I'd say pick up the phone. The funders are there to have a chat with them.
I think a lot of artists wouldn't realize that, Grace, is the fact that they can actually get on the phone, speak to someone and say, is this the right thing to talk about? Is this something I should have in my applications? I think that really is some brilliant top advice for people to take care of. Ruby's asked, is there any funding for an undergraduate who hasn't had any years of income in music? I recently applied but got turned down as I hadn't had 2 years of income.
Yeah, Ruby, I'm sorry to hear that, and it's difficult. It's just that threshold that we have on the funding. In terms of undergraduate funding, I don't know if the Arts Council or PRS Foundation might be able to support with that. There are also a number of trusts and foundations that you might be able to apply for. I would have a look into trusts and foundations, but also just keep an eye out for awards across music. Often you find companies and organizations put awards out quite randomly sometimes that you might be able to apply for funding for. I don't know how close you are to graduating, but once you have, then I think you'll fit the eligibility criteria much more for support that's available through Help Musicians.
I've definitely seen, Grace, there's just because one organization it doesn't work for them, like you said, there's certain opportunities or things that come up through the year, and it's important to stay on top of those opportunities and find them. We do our best at Elementary UK to notify people and let them know. The last question here, we've got Jenna. She said, I've been denied fast track multiple times, some being because I did not supply bank statements. However, I was never asked for them. I want to apply again but feel discouraged. I struggle with applications because of my disability. Any advice?
Yes, Jenna, very happy to talk to you offline about that. I know that they're doing a huge piece of work at Help Musicians at the moment about supporting musicians who have a disability to apply for support. They have also just gone through a huge refresh of their application processes. I can't remember what the technical back end term is, but we would be very happy to have another conversation and support you through the process. So you're welcome to reach out to me and I can connect you directly with the team if that's helpful.
Absolutely. Grace, thank you so much, because this has been it's been practical. There's people watching here going away with real clarity and confidence they didn't have before. So I just want to say a massive thank you. I've learned a lot here. And I think my biggest takeaway is Help Musicians, it isn't just a last resort. Actually, it's a powerful first step, whether it's the funding, the advice, someone to talk to, and those doors are open for people. Grace, thank you so much for coming on and giving your industry advice. Is there anything you'd like to leave our artists today with? Any leaving message, really?
I'll quickly come back on Ruby and say that I don't know where you're doing your undergraduate training, but I'd definitely be talking to your institution. I know at BIM, for example, they're really hot on trying to make sure that people have funding. But yeah, definitely keep your eyes out. But the sort of take home message is we're here to support as best as we possibly can. So whether that is career advice or whether it is specific mental health support, please don't hesitate to get in touch. That's why we're here. That's why we exist.
Amazing. Artists, can we all give a massive thank you to Grace? Because that was fantastic. And I've really enjoyed being on this side. Grace, thank you so much, because that
Pleasure.
means the absolute world to me. Guys, say a big thank you, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely evening.
Thank you. You too. Thanks a lot. Good luck. Take care.
Or thank you. Appreciate the information.
Okay, no problem.
Grace, thank you for coming on to the Insider series. We really appreciate it, and we'll speak soon. I'm sure we'll bump into each other at the next event, wherever it may be on the calendar.
Absolutely. It's very easy to come and do another one another time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.